The right stuff. All right, we've got less than 20 minutes, Rabbi Pesach. We better make this quick.
Okay. How far have we come that we still cannot proudly identify as a Jew in the streets?
What do you mean?
Well, maybe Australia. We're probably okay in Australia. But in most other countries around the world, it's actually quite difficult to walk around the streets with a kippah on and your tzitzit hanging out. And that's something that I think it was Hillel Neuer he called attention to this week.
Right.
And he's right. And especially with the thing that happened in the synagogue in America. It's we are a target, and we're still a target.
We are, and it is a concern. It is a problem, and there's still, it's really weird for all the equality, diversity, inclusivity rhetoric that we're subjected to these days. We are probably the only group that hasn't been brought into that fold.
Of what? Of
inclusivity, diversity, this whole love, peace, and mung beans respect for everybody.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody else is off limits except the Yidden.
Yeah. And certainly acts of violence are still being perpetrated against outwardly visible Jews in many parts of the world. And in parts where it should be it should be like in Paris, for example, it should be completely fine, but
I heard there's a large proportion of Parisian Jews that have bought apartments and houses or whatever in Israel just to be at the ready.
That's right.
If they have, there are a lot of...
There's a huge migration
our
of French
mob
Jews
in Europe,
Yep.
Whether it's France, whether it's Germany.
But even in America, you have to wear a baseball cap now when you're walking the streets.
I mean, look, I was never one to run around the streets with a yarmulke.
Did you ever stop and think to yourself that I'm actually wearing a hat because it is something Jewish?
No.
In your life, you've never...
You know what? I've been wearing a hat almost every day of my life.
I know.
Since I was like 2.5, 3 years old.
It occurred to me that might be one of the reasons why you do it.
It's just what I always do.
Okay.
And,
all right.
After a while, everyone just knew, that big
That's
idiot
Harry.
with the hat, that's Harry. It's not, for me, it's not an observance thing. It's just I've always done it.
Well, I'm happy to say here I can pretty much walk around without, but I suppose I have to be careful which areas I'm in as well.
Yeah, I've never had a problem. I've never had a problem telling people. If people ask what's your background, blah blah blah. Mum's side of the family is Romanian, dad's side's Russian. Mum's side came out after the war. My grandmother survived, was an Auschwitz survivor. My father's grandparents had to leave because of the pogroms in Europe. I have no problems in telling people that I'm a Red Sea pedestrian, because I figure if they've got a problem with it, it's a them problem. If they want to make a problem out of it, I'm more than happy to oblige them.
But it's pretty
But then I'm also the size I am, and I can afford to do that in
right.
most cases.
So in other words, your physical appearance is something that people wouldn't mess with. It's just a strange thing that even in this day and age, like I know an excellent young man who speaks up vociferously on media platforms and sends letters in his capacity of his work and speaks out against anti-Jewish goings-on everywhere, and may very write things like it's terrible behaviour and we're past that these days. Mate, how many times do you actually have to write that before you actually think you can only stand on your soapbox for so long.
It's also part of our upbringing that for most of us, we will cower away from it. Very few of us will ever front someone and go, yeah, I'm Jewish. You got a problem with that, mate.
Yeah.
And be prepared. And as sophisticated as we are, when you're dealing with troglodytes and Neanderthals, sometimes you just have to be prepared to let your fists do the talking.
Yep.
that's, dialogue only gets you so far. And when you're dealing with ingrained hatred, as soon as it rears its ugly head in front of you, you got to step in and do something about it. Otherwise,
Does that mean pro-violence?
No, it's not. It should be avoided.
Pro-defense,
pro self-defense.
Pro self-defense, but as in taking, it's like that comic with Garfield and Odie the dog, and Odie was looking at Garfield funny, and Garfield smacks him one, and John says, "What did you do that for?" And Garfield says, "I hit him back first."
Yeah. But no, as I say, I mean, if someone's going to attack you physically, simply because you happen to be a yid, well, you got to be prepared to defend yourself.
Yep, that's really interesting.
And I can see no problem with that at all.
We're always looking for people with an interest in radio, either presenting your own show or being on the technical side. Become a volunteer now. Head to our website at j-air.com.au. Follow the Get Involved link and click on Become a Volunteer Now.